So, welcome to the first ever Project Breakout podcast with me, Graham Poucher, and most importantly,
Ben Stoker.
Ben Stoker, also known as the Games Master, which is pretty much the best job title you can possibly have, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, best job you can have.
There you go. You heard it here first. So this is the first of hopefully a number of podcasts we're going to be doing, talking about escape rooms, all the stuff behind it, what makes an escape room tick, but delving deeper for, it's really a podcast for gamers, people who love playing escape rooms, and people who build, design and operate them as well. So Ben, the genius behind multi-award winning 5-star set of escape rooms, Project Breakout. How long have you been running them?
So the first game that I designed was round about 2017. The building where my rooms are situated, it's a big climbing gym. So I used to actually manage the climbing gym, and I won't go too much into it, but we suffered sort of massive floods and things back in 2016, damaged a lot of the building that we're in. And when we were then sort of rebuilding, at that point I'd become sort of quite not obsessed with escape rooms, but I'd played quite a few, and it was quite a new thing back then, and I'd really enjoyed them. And discussed with Ewan, who owned the climbing gym at the time, who I was working for. We discussed the possibility of putting an escape room in the building, because, as I said, due to this flooding, we'd got part of the building available. And that's when I designed my first room, really. It was only ever originally planned as an addition to the climbing.
Yeah.
We just thought we'd have one escape room and it'd be a little bit extra for people to do, when they came into the building. And within 6 months of us opening that first room, it was just apparent that people would travel to play them.
And that first room's where we're sat right now,
That's
right?
where we're actually sat. And it's still pretty much the same concept to that game as when I first designed it, but obviously with times have changed over the years. That game has undergone massive changes.
Right.
So if you were to come back and play it now, having played it 6 years ago, probably 80% of the puzzles that are in the game are completely different.
So it's evolved that much?
Oh, it's evolved.
But it's
massively.
the same four walls,
It's
right?
the same four walls.
Yeah.
Because this particular game, it does take place in just a single room, a single space, which is not always the case now with escape rooms. As you say, things have evolved. But we've managed to keep the heart of this game. We didn't want to change it too much, but we wanted to add to it. We wanted to improve it. It's still 6 years down the line. We still get people coming into this game and saying it's one of their favourite games they've ever played, because it's a different style of game.
And do you love all your children equally, or is it the first one with the magical one and you dialed it in with other ones?
This is
Wait, are we still talking about escape rooms?
I think we're still talking about escape rooms. Yes, I think we are. But no, this is still
One of your kids
one
is
of my
crying right now. Or
They'll
nervously
be
biting.
fine. They'll be fine. Kids get over things. Yeah, kids they're resilient. Yeah. No, it's still one of my favourite games because, as I say, it was the first one. But it really means something to me, this game. But it's definitely evolved and definitely changed, compared to the initial game that we designed. So
because you've not only built now 4 escape rooms, you've built a team as well,
absolutely, yes.
Who are really kind of invested in the brand and know what everything's all about.
Absolutely.
So how big's the team? Who are they?
So at the moment, it's 3, myself included.
Yeah.
There's just 3 of us. Over the years, we've had various people that have come and gone just sort of part-time, a couple of them work for us, but then have gone off to uni or gone off to other things. But the core team is myself, Phil and Lee. They're the members of staff that have sort of stuck with us, and there is, as much a part of Project Breakout really as I am. So
So they're on the journey then.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's brilliant. So when I designed the first game, I was pretty much on my own. I didn't even know if it would work. I had an idea that I sort of ran with, and then I had people in trying it out, and it seemed to work well. But it was all my own. All my own doing.
I do remember that then, because I saw it as an opportunity to A, try and do some PR for you, and B, shift a load of old crap that have been building up in my garage.
Basically, yeah.
So your face, I remember I tried to give you a sort of like a fake open fire that was plugged in just because I couldn't get rid of it. It won't fit in the black bin.
And you thought it might fit in one of my rooms? Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
I wasn't sure about that because I don't have the same aptitude for this as you have, but I thought he can make use of that. But it ended up in the skip anyway, So.
To be fair though, as you say, the room that we sat in, even though it's undergone massive changes, a lot of it was built with things that I could get relatively cheap, that I could get from second hand. It's
the ultimate in recycling.
Absolutely. And it fits. To be fair, it fits so well with this theme. As times have moved on, and things have, we've got bigger and sort of better rooms. That's not the case. But with this one, I was working to a very strict budget. I was trying to do it not as cheaply as I possibly could, but I didn't want to be spending a lot of money on an idea that I wasn't 100% certain was going to work.
Sensible.
And there are still some things in this room, sort of looking around now, there are a couple of things in there that were still in here from the word go. A lot of it's changed. A lot of the props have changed. One of the problems with escape rooms is you do find you go through a lot of props, a lot of furniture, because things just get damaged. That's, you've got people in and out, sort of rummaging around, searching all over the place, and things do get damaged. So that's part of what I look at now when I'm designing rooms. Is this going to last? Is this going to get damaged? Is this going to work long term? So
do you have to buy everything twice?
Most things, if it's a big prop that is not going to be moved around or not going to be, then I don't mind spending quite a bit of money on that, and I hope that it's going to last the length of the game really. But smaller things, I try to buy some. I've got some props. I might have 5 or 6 of each one, because I just know that give it 6 months, it's either going to be damaged or it's just not going to work the same as it did when I launched it. And what you don't want is someone turning up and saying, the game was good, but everything in there was tired, nothing really worked, nothing, So it's, we, as much as we innovate and we change things around, some of the stuff that stays the same, it's not actually the same. We might have gone through 4 or 5, of those. But to the outside observer and to the outside player, they wouldn't know that. So.
And it's important to make sure it doesn't look old, it doesn't look tired, because it's almost like I don't know if the right word is microcosm, but it's like a mini theme park, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely,
If you're going on a roller coaster and you're paying a lot of money to get into that theme park and it looks like crap and there's bits falling off, you're not really going to want to come back and say good things. But if it seems fresh and for me as well, the first time I came into this room all those years ago, and I've been into other escape rooms since, there's that kind of awed hush. You can feel it now.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely,
almost like walking into somewhere that's haunted. When you walk into an escape room, there's that, I don't know, that quietness. You feel, the door's never locked, but it might as well be.
My thought process, even going back to the very first room that I designed, was I wanted people to believe that they were stepping into a completely different world, a different universe. They weren't just going into a lobby and then stepping into a room. They could lose themselves, they could actually lose themselves in that story and feel that they were in a completely different place. And I think I get that still sometimes when I walk into other escape rooms. I go and play a lot of escape rooms as well. I've got various people that I go play escape rooms with, and I still get that excitement of walking through the door and not knowing what to expect on the other side of that door. Yeah. And sometimes you walk through the door and it's a bit, oh yeah, this is all right. But you know you're in an escape room.
Yeah.
You know that there's no magic. Whereas some rooms you walk into, and the moment you step through that door, you just completely lose yourself. You know, it's
That's a really good point. 'Cause one of the things I was going to ask is, when you design a room, what is it you're trying to create? And I think you've just answered that, really, haven't you?
yeah. I want people to be able to, for that hour that they're playing that game, just imagine they are completely, you know, in a different place. They may, you know, imagine that they're a completely different person. You know, you can play a character. Well, absolutely. But I've played games where you do take on a different persona, you do take on a different character, and if it's done well, that can be absolutely brilliant. You know, that just adds magic to the game.
Is it a case of, with some people, and you'll see this, or maybe you don't see this, but you see one person arrive, and then when they walk through the door, they change, and it's almost like, do you know when people lose their inhibitions when they're on a dance floor, when they've had a drink, when they've, you know, been at a spa, even whatever it is that's your trigger, and releases those inhibitions, and you're like, oh, that's a different person. Do you see that on the cameras?
I've had people walk. It's one of my favourite things to see, and we talk about it. Myself and Phil and Lee as a team. You can see it. I've had people turn up with a group, and they've sort of been dragged along as part of a group. They're not necessarily even bothered about the fact they're coming to play an escape room. Some of the friends have decided they want to go play an escape room, so they've just come along with them. And you can see the moment they walk through the door, they're not that bothered about, you know, what's happening. You start to do the introduction and start explaining about how the game works, and you can see they're not really engaged. And then seeing them walk through into the game and start to explore, and it's almost like you can see that moment, that sort of light bulb moment of they suddenly get it, and it's like they turn from being, I don't really know what I'm doing, you know, I don't really know why I'm here, I've just come along with some mates, to completely losing themselves in that story, and they take over. You know, they're like, oh, we need to do this. I found this. Oh, I've seen this, you know. And you can see the excitement building. And it's just like that moment where they switch from, oh, I'm just here to do an activity, to I'm doing something and I'm fully engaged in it and I'm completely lost in it. And then when they come out, and I've had people actually say to me, look, I really wasn't looking forward to coming. I didn't even really want to come, but everyone talked me into it. But I can't wait to do another room now. You know, it's that moment and that's what I aim for.
And did they come back? Do you see
absolutely.
So we've got 4 rooms here. Did they come back and do the other rooms?
Absolutely.
Right, so you see repeat visits.
I see repeat visits. The beauty of, I suppose, the escape room world is, well, and because I play a lot of games, I'm also able to tell them of other places and other games to play as well. That's what you want. You want somebody to be engaged in your game and to fall in love with the idea of playing escape rooms, because then it doesn't just benefit me. You know, and us coming, you know, having people coming in to play the games. I know that those people, if they've had a really good experience, they're going to want to go and they're going to want to explore other places. And there are so many other good games out there to play. So it's that, we do get people. I actually get some people coming back and playing the same game.
Brilliant.
And bringing other people with, because they've enjoyed it so much, although they know that when they step through that door, they know what to expect. And they know the puzzles and they know what the aim of the game is. They've enjoyed themselves that much that they want to see somebody else going through that process. So
it's about the phrase sharing the love, in it. You know, if you've gone to a beautiful part of the world, a beautiful place, beautiful restaurant, you've had this nice beer, you've had this amazing ice cream, you want to then, as a human, show other people. And get them to taste and experience.
Absolutely.
It.
So we get the same with the escape rooms.
So ask you there, you know, what is it you try and create here? We know what you're trying to achieve. How difficult, or the flip side, how exciting is it doing it in a former flour mill that's been converted into a urban activity and climbing centre, that, you know, with an idea that was born out of flooding, you know, something so negative leading to something so positive.
I mean, I've got a bit of a love-hate relationship with this building anyway. I love it because, I've been around the place. Even, as I say, even before I had the escape rooms, I was part of the climbing team here. I was... and I've lived around this area for such a long time. So I remember this building being basically an abandoned mill. It wasn't used, and then the climbing gym took over, and the building started to take on this new sort of life of its own. And when I started putting the escape rooms in, as I say, originally the plan was to have one room, and that's slowly developed. So I love finding these other parts of the building that aren't being used or aren't being utilised, and just getting that spark of, I've got an idea of what we could do here, and taking that initial idea from, trying to come up with a storyline or trying to come up with an idea of what we could use it for, actually building that and developing, seeing something created out of that empty space, basically.
We'll have to get Ewan on and see, because I'm sure he'll talk very emotionally and fondly about that.
Yeah.
We need to ask you in this, who's the owner of the building.
Yeah.
But has he played any of these escape rooms?
He has.
I never asked him that.
Yeah, do you know, I think the only one he's not played, is Dollmaker.
Really?
He played Antidote quite early on, because, as I say, at the time I was still working for the climbing gym. It's only when the escape room business really took off. I could, I was that busy running that first escape room, and then because that was so successful, designing the second game and building that, it just quickly became apparent I couldn't commit to continuing to work in the climbing gym and run the climbing gym.
Great, isn't it?
Which was fantastic. But he played this room when it was first designed, having no idea of what an escape room was. Excuse me. I've tried to explain a bit to him about how they worked, but I think we still get people coming in who've no idea. It's a bit of an alien concept. If you've never played one, you don't really know what to expect. And that was, I'm sure he'll say he had absolutely no idea what this sort of crazy idea that I was telling him about, what was about. And the moment he came out of the room, he just sort of looked and he said, that was such a fantastic experience. And he wanted to do more. We actually we went to a couple of other places and played games.
You got the bug.
So he got the bug, yeah. His favourite game is the fourth game that we built, which is at the moment still my sort of biggest project, which is called Operation ClearSafe. That's a much larger, much scarier game.
I think that's a podcast in itself.
Absolutely, But that's the first live actor game that we run, and it can be quite a frightening experience.
It's frightening walking through it with lights on, mate.
Absolutely, but that is, I would say, his favourite game of all of them. Just because it is so different, but he likes to bring people in to play that game because, as I say, you like to see the other people's reactions.
Sharing the love, don't they?
Absolutely, and I think he's probably played that game maybe 3 or 4 times with various different groups and various different people. So it's
a rousing success there.
Absolutely.
So, what's the Operation ClearSafe is probably a really good kind of segue into this. What's the funniest thing that's ever happened with a group that you've been looking after in any of the rooms?
I mean, we get funny things all the time. We get. You'd be amazed how many people go into a room and they become convinced that they've figured out exactly what they need to do next, despite the rest of the team telling them that no, that's a stupid idea. That would, that's not right. But they manage to convince the whole team that their idea will work and their idea.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. So I've got, in fact, the room that we're standing in now. We've got a puzzle that involves.
I'm sitting down. I am short. but I am sitting down. This isn't me stood up, Ben.
No, there's
I've got a cushion.
there's a puzzle that it involves colours, and the lock.
It's not a spoiler alert.
It's not a spoiler, but the lock is it's similar to the old safe style locks that you get. So you have to turn the dial in certain directions, and you have to stop at certain numbers. Yeah, it's like like the old
So you go
safes that you get. Yeah, turn it. So run it to the left hand side, and then turn it to the right.
How do they work?
I've no idea. It's one of the few.
hell?
It's one of the few locks that I've never sort of.
How can it work? There's no
I've
computer in there.
It's incredible.
Sorry,
but with that
I've always wanted
puzzle,
to ask you that.
yeah. Any of the other locks, I can probably tell you how they work. And to be honest, this is the only room that we have one of those locks in. That's partly why we only have one in this room, because some people do get very frustrated.
Do you know what?
But
Rich?
in this,
Just to jump in, you talk about that frustration. We know my question was, what's the funniest thing? And there's a follow-on to that. But we played a room. It was a really, really good room until we got to another room within the room, and we got to that lock and we wasted 10 minutes
and you just couldn't do it.
And then at the end the person had to come in, and even they struggled to do it. And we go back to talking about we're trying to create something that's believable. It ruined it. It blew it.
But again, this is one of those things, like I talked about at the beginning. If you try to make sure that anything in that room still works as well as it did the very first time you ran that game. So the particular lock that I'm talking about, we've actually changed that lock probably 7 or 8 times since we opened. Right. Yeah, because there is nothing more frustrating than getting to a point and not being able to do something, not because you can't do it, or not because you've not figured out the puzzle, or you're not good enough to do it, but because what you're trying to do just isn't working.
Yeah.
And it does. It gets so. Yeah. And as I say, that's one of the reasons we only use that lock in this particular room, because it fits so well with the theme.
Right. Gotcha.
I'm a great believer in, if you're creating a story and you're creating a theme and you're building a room, anything that's in that room should be believable.
Yeah.
So if you're playing a game set in ancient Egypt, and yet you're suddenly finding all these electronic devices and things, and you're having to play about with computers and things like that. It takes away from the whole, the whole storyline. It's so that lock still works really well in this game, which is why we've never removed it, even though it can be frustrating to some people. It tends to be the reason people, when you're telling them about the lock, you can see the look of horror on the face. And it's because 9 times out of 10, those people will have played a room somewhere else that has a similar lock that doesn't work properly, that causes frustration. Once you explain to them exactly how this particular lock works, it's very, very rare that people still have an issue with that lock. They manage to do it first, sometimes second time of trying. Because the lock works properly, and because you've explained to them, and because the puzzle makes sense. And absolutely.
It'd be interesting to see if there's any either gamers or operators who might be listening to this and say, do you have a lock that you just hate integrating into games? You maybe have to sometimes, or is it a lock you never touch? Or
I can pretty much tell you what that lock will be, because I speak to a lot of enthusiasts, I speak to a lot of owners. Most people will tell you if there's a lock that they don't like, it's a directional lock.
So it's the north, south, east, west.
The north, south, east, east and west ones. I don't know why. To be perfectly honest with you, I love those locks.
I'm all right with them. It's the safe ones.
But again, I think that's because I know how they work. So I have played rooms where we've come across one of those locks, but it hasn't been properly explained to us in the briefing or, in the introduction how that lock works. Or how to reset that lock, or how, people, you need to take your time with a lock like that. You don't need to rush it. You need to know what you're doing with it. So quite often the frustration comes not with the fact that is the lock that's in there, but it's with finding a lock that you've not come across before, and you haven't been given the correct instruction on how to work it. But that can be the same with any type of lock.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a padlock in one of my games, but it actually has a little like a little clasp on it that you have to move to then be able to put the key in.
Oh, okay.
Now, if you don't tell people how to move that clasp, they'll see that lock, they'll find the key, but they won't know where to put it in.
You could think it's a red herring.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, so a lot of the frustration, but I guarantee, if you were to ask 100 enthusiasts or 100 people who've played escape rooms, which is their least favourite lock, I would say that the vast majority of the answers that come back negatively would be the direction lock.
So that might be a change.org petition to ban them.
Well, do you know, as I say, we use them in some of our rooms, and as long as you explain to people exactly how to work them, they doesn't seem to be an issue.
Yeah. A lot of that's the communication.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what's the most awkward thing that's ever happened since you've been running escape rooms?
The most awkward. I mean, it's never nice when people don't get out of the room.
Yeah.
That can be quite awkward. If somebody is getting absolutely nowhere with the game, regardless of how much help you try and give them, how much assistance you try and give them, I suppose that feeling that you've failed the game can be quite frustrating for people. But not everybody's going to get out of the room, and I think as long as rooms are fair, as long as people have a chance of getting out of them.
It's interesting because my next and final question, would you take it personally if someone don't look like they're having fun? So it's really interesting how that's connected. But also, we're in a climbing centre, and when you're watching competition climbing, sometimes you think the route setters are a bit sadistic.
Oh,
they almost seem impossible. So it's just weird how those three things all combine, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the frustration that people get comes down to games mastering.
Right.
Comes down to the person running the game. Comes down to the people, you know, who are meant to be there to help the players. I think I'm fortunate that myself and my staff know the games inside out and know exactly when they need to step in and offer assistance and when not to. Because it can be frustrating. I've played games where you get too much help. I've actually played games before where I've been working on a puzzle, and it might be taking a little bit of figuring out, but I'm slowly getting my head around it.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you know, the games master stepped in and given you a clue and basically told you how to do that puzzle. Well, actually, I'd worked out how to do the puzzle. I'm working my way through it. That can be as frustrating as coming across a puzzle and not being able to work it out and not being given any assistance at all. So it's those little things, as I say, a games master can play a massive, massive part in whether a team is going to enjoy that game or not, whether they're going to have a good experience.
Yeah.
So
it can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
It's has anything ever happened where somebody's come out and gone, because you get them, even though they're wrong, they're telling you that your clues or your storyline,
absolutely,
or vice versa, they've called you out and they're right, and you're thinking, or is it mainly just
I don't think they've ever. Yeah, I don't think anyone's ever called me out and I've thought, oh yeah, they're right about that. I've had people come out and make a suggestion, and I've thought, oh, do you know what? Actually, that might improve that, or you know that. I've also had occasions, which always makes me laugh, where somebody's working on a puzzle, and I can see the thought process that they're going through, but they come up with the weirdest, most wacky idea of how to solve that puzzle. It makes no sense in that instance. What they're saying will not help them in any way to solve that puzzle. But at the same time, I'm thinking what they are saying would make a really, really good puzzle if it was done right. So there are actually times when somebody has come up with an idea that doesn't help what they're doing at the moment, but does give me food for thought for a different puzzle or a different room later on.
And that's it. So taking good ideas and good feedback. Ben, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Project Breakout podcast. That's been half an hour. Thanks for listening. Hopefully we'll have some more. See you soon.
Excellent. Cheers. Bye-bye.